Okay, so the final thing I want to do is I want to replace out these in key statements, so we can have multiple key presses, because it's hard to play this game if you can only press one key at a time. You have to let go of the space bar so you can use left or right, and then it starts dropping. So we want to be able to hold down or tap the space bar while we're going left or right. So to do that, we don't use in key, because that will only let us read one key at a time. Instead, what we do is we'll actually ask the Spectrum to tell us the hardware status of the contacts in the keyboard by reading a port, a hardware port. And what it'll do is it'll return kind of a series of values stored in binary, like on-off switches. And we can just query those particular little binary switches to say, are these keys actually physically pressed? Okay, so it's not kind of limited to reading a key, it's limited to, well, it's not limited, it's basically going to read the actual hardware switches on and off. Now, we do that by reading a port, and I'm going to go through, and there is some other things that I notice that don't quite work when I'm doing this, but I'm going to replace out the O key, and I'm going to query, I'm going to put a couple of brackets in here, I'm going to go in, which works as an integer statement, and I'll put in and a hardware port saying, give me information about this part of the keyboard. Now, information about those ports you will actually find in the manual on, oops, let's move in the right place, on page 272. So if you want to read the manual and have a look at that, you'll find that stuff on page 272. Okay, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to just quickly put in the O key and have a look. So the port, according to the manual here, is for the O key is going to be on 57342. So 57342. So we're saying in, read, query this piece of hardware, bracket, and then we want to kind of mask out that bit where the O key is. So I know it's the second key in from the end, so P is the first one, O is the second one. So we go %, which is basically a like an AND bit and symbol, like you can use it like a mask, and we'll mask out that one bit by going 2. Okay, so what that'll do is it'll basically zero out everything inside that information that came back from the hardware, and it'll just leave the result of the bit that relates to the key. Now, the interesting thing with this is when a key's pressed, the value is 0, and if it's not pressed, it's 1. So if we go put that little mask in, if it's a 1 means the key's not pressed. So we go if, and we'll read import where the key is, and we go, okay, let's mask it by 2. And we say if that is equal to 0. Now, the brackets are important because otherwise it doesn't calculate properly. Then we probably pressed the O key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly test this and to make sure it doesn't keep crashing, because I want to test the left and the right keys. I'm just going to go down to that let y equals y plus v, and I'm just going to put a semicolon on there just to comment that out so it won't fall down. And go run. S. Okay, if we tap P, which is still the in key one, it's working fine. If I press O, nothing. Now, I wasn't quite sure what was happening because I did try this earlier, and for some reason this and checking the sign is greater than -8 before you subtract it was kind of breaking it. So I got rid of this and I found a workaround. Okay, so if it doesn't work one way, try it another way. So what you do is instead of putting it in the if statement, we just put it after we've done it. We'll just say, is it less than 8? Let's just force it to not go beyond that value. So we'll go if % SGN curly brace H curly brace is greater. In fact, let's go smaller than -8. Then let % H equals -8. Okay, notice that we don't need to put the SGN in here. SGN is only when we want to translate or read a value and work out, is it technically a negative number. Okay, if we just go equals a negative number, it'll put the correct value in there. Okay, so I'm going to run that. Let's see if that works. Okay, so P works fine. O works fine as well. Okay, so the P key, but if we hold down O, O overwrites it because we know O is pressed. P is just ignored because the O key is pressed down. Okay, so that's working all right. So let's add the same thing, but let's do it for the P key. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about and page 272 doesn't make any sense, I've put together this little chart. I'm going to bring this up. That shows you kind of the values you need to create your in thing. So on the left hand side, I've got the port numbers, right? So you see here 57342 is a port, and if we look down our little list there on our graph, we've got 57342. It's the third up from the bottom, and then at the top I have the bit numbers that we use with that ampersand to mask them out. So I'm looking for O key, and you see O key. If we look up at the top, it says 2. So 2 will mask out that one little flag right there and zero out each side of it. So let's use that chart, and we can see here it's 57342, and it should be the 1, right? So the 1 at the top. So let's go back to our code. So easy enough. We just go in here, and the same thing in here. In 57342, close the bracket, ampersand 1 to mask it, close the bracket. If it's equal to 0, which means it's pressed down, and we get rid of this because it does break for some reason, then we add 0.5. Now we just have, at the end of that, we just do a quick check. Gen curly brace H, okay, is greater than 8, then let percent H equals 8. And let's just run that. Left, right. If you push them both at the same time, it goes really slow, because then we stop. Okay, because it can't accelerate because the O key is being held down. So it's going to plus minus plus minus. Okay. Now the key here, of course, not just left and right. The real key is the space bar. So the space bar has to be pressable at the same time that that the left and right are being pressed. So again, like this with all the ifs and everything else and the ands, which kind of broke that, I'm going to kind of break this up a little and kind of spread out over a couple of lines. So I'll make it 116 for now, just to move it down. So 115 if percent bracket in, and bring up our chart again, and we'll just have a look. Okay, we can see the space bar is port 32766, and like the P, it's the last character in that little port. So we're going to ampersand 1, which is at the top in black. Okay, so let's come back here. So if in and 32766, let's bracket, ampersand 1, which should just get that byte. Okay, we're going to do a little different thing here. If it's equals to 1, I'm going to skip over to that line 120 where I've got the kind of like the falling part. Then go to, I'll put a percent sign 120. Right. Otherwise, it's obviously pressed. So in 116, just going to get rid of the spacebar part in there, and we're going to do that. Now, hopefully, when we press, we start it, go left. Okay. Okay. 120. Okay. F0 and SGN. Okay. Let S equals 1 and go to 130. Okay. So something in here is broken again. Okay. So I'm gonna. So I'm not sure why these things are breaking with the and signs, but it'll be something simple, I'm sure. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of that. Go to 130 at the end, which will skip over that part. I'm going to go if s percent sgn curly bracket v curly bracket is greater than, I think it was -8, was it? So it's -8. Then let percent v equals -8. And 117 go to, oops, 130 to skip over that one there. So I might just put some notes. Okay, I'm running this. Oh, running out of lines. No, I'll put a gap in there. There we go. So let's go run. So now, hopefully, yep, can hold down the space bar while I'm moving left to right. Sweet. Okay, so that's definitely working. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to uncomment this. And we go run. And then we go, whoa, 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 that's way too fast. Okay, so I've obviously done something in here. So fuel is greater than v equals v minus 0.5. Let s equals 1, let f equals f minus 1, print at. Okay. If sgnv is less than -8. Okay, so it goes smaller. That's what I wanted. That's why I got it wrong. See, so can tap. Okay. Okay, so now we can press the keys, multiple keys. So that's solved our problem with the in key. So now we can hold all the keys back together, and they won't overwrite each other. So spacebar and left and right at the same time. Very handy. Okay, so I'm going to bring up that port chart again. Okay, so if you're curious about the ports for multi-key presses, then that is a chart you'll need. Now I'll probably put this image up online somewhere, just so you can actually grab it if you want to, or you could screen grab that now if you wanted to do it that way. But yep, 272, handy page, and it goes through all of that stuff. Okay, so we've kind of finished at that point. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things we could do to polish this up. We could put some nice graphics, proper title sequence, a proper game over sequence. Maybe when we complete things, we could chuck in, I don't know, we could chuck in some music and other things, and probably put proper sound effects in here. But the core game is here, and I think as part of the kind of creative side, you might want to go and take that game and just make it your own. Change your graphics and make it kind of really cool, and add some extra levels and other things like that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. I really hope so. And hopefully you've learned something or picked up some cool tips. And I will attempt, as 2021 gets in, to put together some more game tutorials and programming tutorials, because I have a whole, like I said at the beginning, of a whole pile of different game projects kind of drawn up and ready to go. So I'll leave you with this. Sorry, I keep staring down at my Spectrum Next. Okay, I'll leave you with basically the Spectrum Next, or C-Spect, and I'll leave you with that kind of introductory tutorial, and I will see you probably in 2021.